Hey there guys, it's measuring time. Measuring is such an important skill set. You've got to be able to use a ruler. If you can't use a ruler, you're going to be in trouble. You're going to waste material, you're going to waste time, and you're going to have trouble in life getting things into doorways, apartments, figuring out whether your furniture is going to fit in your place. So let's talk about measuring. These are two common cheap rulers that we have in our classroom. This is one that I think I got at like a dollar store or something, and this one came from like another little hardware store or tool supply place, and they're both metal or plastic with inches and centimeters. That's the key difference. You know, you have very different rulers with architectural scales sometimes that you have to be able to read that are all in scale or inches, and sometimes we just use a tape measure that's going to have different denominations on it. But in our case, in my class, all of our tapes are 1/16ths of an inch and inches. So I teach woodworking and construction classes in the United States. Therefore, we're going to use a measurement system that is used here in the United States most commonly. We're not using a global system of metrics. We are not going to use centimeters. We're not going to use anything that's associated with that. We're simply going to use feet and inches. And when you divide the inch up, we're not going to make it too complicated. We're going to keep it as simple as we can, and that's keeping it to the 1/16th of an inch. If you can measure to the 1/16th of an inch, you're going to do fine in my class, and you'll be able to use that later on in life. Very important skill set. So let's talk about this. The first thing you need to do when you get a measuring device is you need to look at the device and determine what scale is on it. What is the scale you're measuring with? How do you do that? First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at this inch here. So the inch side of the ruler doesn't have a number on it. This side is the centimeter side. So here we're going to use this side because this says inches. So I know I'm on an inch scale. Done. I don't have to do that again for the rest of my measurements as long as I know I'm using this inch side. The next thing I need to do is determine what the scale is of these inches. How many spaces are we dividing this inch into? That's what that means by determining what the scale is. So if I can count from the 0 point to the first number, which is 1, if I can count 16 little lines or 16 spaces in there, that means I'm using a 16th scale. If I can only count 8 lines, then that's an 8th scale. Okay, so you want to make sure that whatever measuring your device you're using for my classroom, it's going to be a 16th scale. That's the only one we're going to practice. Again, my tape measures, I don't know if I can get this close enough for you guys to see. Maybe it'll focus on this. My camera's not going to focus on that. It's okay. This is a 16th scale. There's 16 spaces in this tape measure. If we have this ruler right here, we have, see if I can get that to focus. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe, maybe not. There's an inch side and there's a centimeter side. So here we have to flip this over to get to the inches, and from 0 to 1 there's 16 spaces. Now you got to know where the 0 is. The edge of this ruler is not 0. You got to find the first line, which is 0 on some rulers. So that's the next step. After you define scale, determine where 0 is. Where are you starting from? You wouldn't want to start a race from a mile behind the starting line. You want to start at 0 with everybody else so that you get the same fair shot. You want to be able to measure accurately. So determine where 0 is. Here we have the first line for 0. On some things like a tape measure, this hook, this is 0. The hook, if it's working properly, will measure 0 from outside or inside. On this ruler, 0 is the first line inside. So once you've determined where you're starting from and where 0 is, you've also determined the scale. In this case, it's a 16th scale. Now we can start to measure. A friend of mine, Bob Rini, has a ruler reading routine, he likes to call it. And he has 3 steps that you must do every time you measure. So if you include the first 2 steps I gave you, determining your scale and finding 0, you have to remember 5 things to measure accurately every time. But the 3 steps of the ruler reading routine is step 1, the big number. So do you find a big number before you get to the measurement you are looking for? If so, write it down. Okay? If you're measuring on this ruler and you're coming across and you go, oh, I'm going to measure, in this direction. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's say I'm going to measure here somewhere. I get to the 6. Well, that 6 is a big number. Write that down. We got to start with 6. And then we're going to count how much of an inch after 6 we've got. So write that down. The next one is the bottom number. count the lines that are the same height or taller from the beginning to the next full inch. Okay? Wait for the bell. Then write down the bottom number. Remember, the smaller lines don't count. So let's go over that again. It says count the lines that are the same height or taller from the beginning to the next full inch, and then write down that number. The smaller lines don't count. So if we're going to measure a line over here, let's say this middle line between 2 inches, you just need to count the number of lines from the beginning of the inch, 1, 2. There's 2 lines there. If you start with 1, the 0 line or the 6 line, there, so that means that bottom number is 2. Okay, that makes it pretty simple. If you're going to go to the next smallest line, since that was the biggest one, the middle line's the biggest one in the middle of the inch, none of the ones smaller counts. The next smallest line, let's say we're going to measure 3/8. Okay, that means we have 1, 2, 3 eighth lines, because each different size line means a different thing, is where we're going to start and stop to. That eighth line is 1, 2, 3 of those lines over. Okay, so you got to count, if that's the size of the line we're measuring, you got to count everything that's that size or bigger. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Sure enough, there's 8 lines the size of the 3/8 line or bigger. So everything that's that size or bigger counts. So we get that 8 number, we write it down on the bottom of our fraction. Okay, then the top number. Count the exact same lines you just counted, but stop at the point that you're measuring to and write that down. So if you're measuring 3/8, 6 and 3/8, you're going to go 1, 2, 3, and that's where you're going to stop. So you're going to put 3 there. So you'll have 6 and 3/8 as the measurement. Hopefully that makes sense. Let's do another example here. Let me write one on the board for you guys. So let's say we have a ruler. Okay. And I'm going to kind of draw this out. So we have 1, 2, 3. Let's say this is 0, this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, and we're measuring here. So we've got big line, 1/4 inch lines, 1/8 inch lines, and then we're going to have all the 16th lines. Okay? Hope you guys can see this. Let me see if we can get this zoomed in a little bit better. We'll get you even closer. There we go. Okay, so if we're measuring to this point here, assuming there's lines here and here, let's say that our measurement is this line right here. Okay, let's say this is the one we want to measure. Then what we need to do is, again, step 1 is identify the big number. This is the big number here, so we're going to write down a 1. Okay, then we're going to do number 2. Step 2 is the bottom number, so we have to do this. This is going to be a fraction, top and bottom. The top and bottom of this fraction, let me write this a little higher where you guys can see it. 1. So we have the top and bottom of this fraction. So everything that's, here, I'll do this in a different color so you guys can see it. It's this size or bigger has to count. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 8, so the bottom number becomes 8. Now we do the same thing, but we stop here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 1 5/8. Done. Okay? So let's change the number up again. Let's say this time we're going to measure to this one. This looks like a complicated one. So first thing we do is we go, okay, well that's here at this level. I need to measure how many. First we start with this big number here, right? So we've got to go, oh, big number is 1, so we have a 1 in our answer. Then after the 1, so you guys can see it on the camera. So then step 2 is the big number. We're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. There's 16 lines that's this size or bigger in this inch. So then we have step 3, is then do the same thing, but we stop at this mark that we're measuring to. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 sixteenths. No reductions needed, no math fraction work. You're just, if you can count to 16, you can read a ruler this way, okay? The ruler reading routine, 3 simple steps. Okay, so hopefully that helps you guys clarify this whole process and you got that down. Remember, let's review the 5 steps. First, identify what your scale is. Make sure you're using the right measuring tool. Then identify where 0 is so you know where to start with your measuring tool. Once you got those things down, then you start the reading ruler routine. Steps 1 through 3. 1, the big number, 2, the bottom number, and 3, the top number. Sometimes that number, if you're just at a 1 or you're just at a 2, might not have a bottom or top number. That may just be 0 and 0, so you're just 1 or you're just 2. And you don't have to do the rest of that work. That's a super easy one, right? But otherwise, if you're in the middle of an inch somewhere, you got the reading ruler routine, and Mr. Bobrini has your back. So we'll see you next time. Hopefully that helps. If you need more help, come and see me.